Welcome back to another cooking demonstration at the Urbana Park District. Today we're learning about crock-pot meals. Crock-pot meals are so wonderful, especially for the busy household. Usually you can put it in, set it, and forget it, and by the time you get home you have dinner ready and served. Crock-pot meals are some of my favorites because I work full-time, and so when I get home it's nice to have dinner waiting for me. There's no rules when it comes to crock-pots, really. You can cook chicken, meatballs, fish, anything you want in crock-pots. You can make soup, dips, appetizers. Today we are going to demonstrate how to make Italian beef in the crock-pot. Italian beef is a great meal to do on the cheap because it can use typically non-popular cuts of the cow. So today we're going to be working with the eye round. The round cut of the cow comes back here, kind of on the rear end area, so that muscle gets worked a lot when the cow walks around. So it's not as tender as, say, a tenderloin from the steak, or the cow, I'm sorry. So we're going to use eye round. The reason it's called eye is because it's the muscle right in the middle of the round, right here on the cow. The eye is a great piece of meat because it's really tough. And the great thing about crock pots is that because you cook low and slow, it doesn't strain the muscle as much as you would do on searing. And I'm going to show you both techniques today. So this is my eye of the round. I'm going to trim off this little fat right here. You really don't have to trim up very much. The fat gives the meat a lot of flavor when it cooks, so you can get this and just pick it out after your roast is ready, your Italian beef is ready. I am going to cut just a little bit of this off and discard it in the garbage can. And now I'm ready to season my meat. I'm going to season it with these spices right here. You can see I have crushed red pepper. I have an Italian seasoning blend which consists of rosemary, fresh thyme, dried oregano, and dried basil. You can either use a fresh seasoning blend a dried seasoning blend like this, or you can use dried oregano and dried basil. Since this has the rosemary in it, I'm really interested in this one because it's going to give it that extra boost of flavor. And then I also have black pepper and kosher salt. So I'm going to take my roast and I'm going to give it an even coat of all of these spices. Now you can make your Italian beef spicier by adding more of the red pepper flake or less. I'm kind of a medium spice person, so I'm going to be a little bit conservative on how much I put in. The Italian seasoning, you're really going to want a lot of this. This is what gives it that really Italian flavor with the dried herbs, and you can kind of smell it right now. It smells really, really good. So I'm going to season one side of the meat, and then when it's in the pan, I'm going to season the other side. Just a little bit of pepper. Now I'm going to get my pan hot with oil. We talked last month about when to test if your pan is hot with oil, the salt method. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sear this piece of meat to really bring out the flavors, and after it's seared on both sides, then I'm going to deglaze the pan with some red wine. Deglazing means that I'm using liquid to pull all of that caramelization off the bottom of the pan because we want all that goodness in the crock pot while it's cooking. While we're waiting for the oil to heat up in the pan, I'd like to pan over to our mise en place. These are our dried herb sections, which we added to our round roast first. These are our wet ingredients, which include beef stock, a dry red wine, and some oil to sear the meat in. And then I've got a little bit of banana peppers that I'm going to add at the end. The banana peppers, I love anything sour, so the more the merrier. I actually have to be careful how much sour I add into my meals. But Italian beefs love mild banana peppers. My oil is getting hot now, and I did the salt test where it sizzles once you put it in, and so it's ready for my eye roast to go in. So I want to make sure I sear it on both sides. You can hear that start to sizzle. And I'm going to wash my hands and season the other side real quick. If you guys are running out of time making this dish at home, feel free to just throw it in the crock pot. It will still be tender and juicy, but it'll have the searing actually really gives it that extra oomph of flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and season the backside of my roast. A little bit of kosher salt. I try to be a little bit conservative on the salt because you can always add it back in later. If you add too much salt, the dish will only get saltier as it cooks down. And remember, this has to cook for about 4 hours. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of pepper. This is just ground black pepper. And then I'm going to add my seasoning, my Italian seasoning with the dried herbs and the rosemary. You can also feel free to add fresh herbs to this, fresh thyme, fresh rosemary. They will really enhance the flavor. And then I'm going to add a little bit of red pepper flakes. As this piece of beef is searing, I'm going to add a little bit of onions to the bottom of the pan. I want the onions to kind of get that caramelization flavor we were talking about from the meat. And everything in this pan is going to go straight to the crock pot. So I've added my onions. And now, how long is too long to wait to flip? The answer to that is you can always turn it over and check it. So I'm going to turn this over. And this is what you're looking for. You're looking for a nice dark sear on the top of the meat. And I'm going to sear this on all 4 sides. If you don't know how long to do, just keep checking it. That's fine too. Usually takes about 1 minute to 2 minutes on each side, and we have this on high heat. After I've seared my meat on both sides, and I've got my onions sauteing and getting all of that beautiful flavor in with the beef, I'm just going to put everything right into the crock pot. So this is good. I'm going to transfer this to my crock pot. I'm going to saute the onions just a little bit more. You can see some of the spices from the meat are coating the onions really nicely. It's all going to be mixed in together, so that's totally fine. Now, I don't want my onions to cook down until they're mush because don't forget, they're going to cook 4 hours in the crock pot. So I just want a little bit of that glaze on them from the caramelization. I'm going to pour about an 1/8 of a cup into the pan. We don't want this to be very red wine flavory. We want it to be more beef flavory, but this is going to pick up all of those little really flavorful bits of beef that are stuck to the bottom of the pan. So I'm going to reduce this just a little bit. Reducing means to let it simmer until it reduces down in size. So you can see that I'm reducing about half. It's barely covering the bottom of the saute pan. I'm going to go ahead and turn my burner off and pour this right on top of the beef. And then I'm going to add a little bit of stock to get it heated up. This is beef stock. You can buy it right at the grocery store. Really wonderful, or you can make your own. But this dish makes a really great jus that you can use again for soup bases or sandwiches or stocks. It's really wonderful. And I'm going to add a little bit more. You want to add about an entire container, which is 32 ounces. But since I had already started with a half-opened one, I'm only going to add half of this. You really don't need a lot of liquid for your crock pot. You just need enough so that the protein doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. So once this is heated, I'm going to pour this on top too. And this is going to be your jus for your Italian beef. It's going to be a lot of flavor, really wonderful. And this is where I add in my banana peppers. And you can just throw those right in there, just like this. If you like vinegar-based flavors, you can add a little bit of this, the banana pepper juice to the Italian beef as well. And I like to save some banana peppers so that I have some fresh ones to put on my sandwich later. And that's it. Now I'm going to turn my crock pot on. I'm going to put it on low, and then dinner will be ready tonight. 4 hours have gone by and we are now ready to serve our Italian beef. As you can see, this notoriously kind of hard cut of beef is now completely tender and falling apart. This is also a good time where you can kind of clean up the tendons and take out some of the fat that you don't want now that it's all cooked down. You can see our onions have caramelized and we have this really dark, beautiful beef jus. So I'm gonna chop this up a little bit. Now, if you guys remember our segment last month, we talked about pickling and preserving. Well, I hope you guys saved your carrots and onions because this is a perfect dish to eat with your pickled items. You can see how tender this beef is. It's just falling apart as I spread it. And our banana peppers have added that really nice acidity to the flavor. And finally, I'm going to finish and top it with our pickled vegetables. And it's ready to enjoy.